I'm a daughter of Zimbabwe. I'm a person that was born in Harare, but I've spent actually the last decade of my life living in the wilderness, in the wildlife. I live in Hwange, very close to Hwange National Park. In terms of my background, I started off my career actually as a scientist. I was educated abroad. I have a degree and I'm a biochemist, is what I'm trained to be, but I've also got an education in public health. I now find myself a conservationist. I've spent most of my time living with elephants and buffalo and lions in the middle of the bush. I've built a safari operation out in Hwange. When I first moved there wasn't much in terms of tourism. People just weren't coming to Hwange. They didn't think of it as a major destination. But we've developed quite a beautiful space there. And now we have a very popular spot. We've got 2 separate lodges, a lot of accommodation, and we have tourists coming from all over the world to Zimbabwe and staying in Hwange. So I'm a safari operator, but I also spend a lot of my time working with young people. I've got a program we've built in our community. It's all about STEM education. Even before Zimbabwe was talking about STEM education, we were teaching teachers how to teach the sciences. We were teaching teachers all about how to teach physics and chemistry, because we found in the rural areas a lot of the schools didn't have science teachers. You were finding maybe a religious studies teacher or geography teachers trying to teach physics or trying to teach chemistry. So I've got a huge passion for science education, and I believe that education is really one of the most important aspects of society. So I'm also a mentor, someone who works a lot on community-based projects. Lots of aspects to what I do. It's interesting, you don't get to choose your journey. You know, sometimes it's just meant to be, or it's thrust upon you. Back in 2020 actually, about 2 years ago, there was a lot of noise happening in Hwange, and it was mostly centered around foreigners who were coming into the wilderness areas. There were people coming saying they wanted to explore and extract coal in a national park. And so I got involved in a campaign to stop mining in Hwange National Park. I actually led a group of people who were very concerned about protecting the wildlife area. But it was more than that. For us, it was livelihoods. It was people who were living in that area whose culture was going to be eroded by coal mining in that area. So it started for me as a concern for protecting wilderness areas and cultural sites and spaces that in Zimbabwe, you know, we say njimbo dzakakosha, you know, there are certain places that are very important to us as Zimbabweans. And so we were successful, and fortunately the government reversed their position in terms of mining in Hwange National Park. But I started receiving phone calls from people all over Zimbabwe. People were concerned and saying, wapinda kwatiri, people were coming into areas all across Zimbabwe. People were being removed from their homes. And so I started spending almost 80% of my time on phone calls, trying to advocate and protect spaces, trying to support people, trying to share what we had done in Hwange. And I realized we had a very big problem, because there seemed to have been a reversal in the thinking of Zimbabwe should be for Zimbabweans. I found myself wondering and questioning whether or not Zimbabweans were the priority anymore, because foreigners were coming and dictating to us what was to be done in our country. So I, out of concern for that, I started calling people together, and it sort of converged upon a meeting of people from all across Zimbabwe, and this was on a particular day, the 29th of May 2021. We brought people together from all provinces, and I just phoned people who I knew were concerned about Zimbabwe, who had different backgrounds, and we met for a 24-hour period. And during that time, we just sat around the table and said, how can we pressure government to do the right thing? How can we force the government of Zimbabwe to pay attention to the people of Zimbabwe? Because we felt like we were not being heard. And at the end of that conversation, it sort of morphed into a conversation about, we are not going to get anywhere with this government. We need a new government. It's time for Zimbabwe to have new leaders, people who are concerned. And so that was the birth of the United Zimbabwe Alliance. On 29 May 2021, sitting around a table, we all voted in a new leadership. We selected what we now call our executive directorate. We mapped out very basically the framework for what was to be our new political party, UZA. And from that day, we've not stopped working. We very quickly started working on our constitution. It was completed within 10 days after that event. We then put together what we call our priorities, which are anchored on sustainable development. This is a roadmap or a document which is the framework for our manifesto. That was put together, within a month of us sitting down on 29 May. And after that, we had our first youth conference. We brought together young people from all across Zimbabwe to say, what is it that you want in the next Zimbabwe? What is it that you don't see in your society? So we heard from the youth about the challenges they were facing. We heard about the lack of jobs. I mean, basic things like, being able to know that I can go to a place and get skills and actually know that after I'm done training, I can get a job. There were no jobs in Zimbabwe. The youth were very concerned about not being heard. The youth are the majority in our country, but they have no voice. So the youth mapped out their agenda. Soon after that, we had a meeting for the women, and women had a women's conference. Of course, I was very interested in hearing what women in Zimbabwe are concerned about, and we mapped out a separate manifesto specifically for the women. We then went forward with what we call our citizens engagement platform, and that's really the center, the heart of what UZA is. We've traveled all across Zimbabwe, meeting with people. We are spending most of our time in the rural areas, where we are meeting citizens, hearing from citizens, trying to understand what is the what is the state of our country, and what do citizens believe needs to be done to bring us on track. So as we've shaped all of this, we came forward with a very clear mission and vision statement. And our mission as the United Zimbabwe Alliance became fully clear, and that is that we are on a mission to build Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a country that has everything that we could ever want. I mean, as a nation, we are richer than most countries in the world. And I've traveled extensively. I've seen almost every part of this world. But we have everything, and yet we are one of the poorest nations. I often like to say to people, when I travel abroad, people ask you, where are you from? And the moment I say I'm from Zimbabwe, they just shake their head and say, shame. But shame for what? We have everything in our country. So what we've identified as our mission as UZA is to unite Zimbabweans. It doesn't matter what their background is, it doesn't matter where they come from, but to unite Zimbabweans around one idea, and that is to rebuild our country. But we want to build it for Zimbabweans. We also, I have a lot to say, we also believe that Zimbabwe is not this country that has to be rescued by other countries. We're not waiting for other countries to come and rescue us. We believe that it's within us as Zimbabweans. We have the capacity, we have the skills, the intellect to do it. So we are saying, as we unite Zimbabweans, let's find the best solutions from the Zimbabwean people, and let's find ways to do that. Let's build Zimbabwe. Yeah. I've never been involved in politics before UZA. It's not something I sought out. I have a very successful career. I've got everything I could ever want in my life. But when you build a successful career or a successful life, but you look at the people who live just a few kilometers away from you, and you know that their life is not in order, and you know that it's been that way for how many years, and there are no answers coming, because I don't see any potential changes in terms of the solutions that are coming. It's the same faces, the same people standing and saying we will change Zimbabwe tomorrow. What have they done up to now? Why are we not in a different situation today than we were 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago? So for me, we are in a situation where people are dying out of basic things, like people are dying from hunger. People are dying because they don't have hospitals that provide for them. So I cannot live my wonderful life, and I do have a wonderful life, and watch the rest of Zimbabwe suffer. So call me whatever you want to call me, but ultimately my concern is for the people of Zimbabwe. Even if you look at the environmental situation, where I come from, there are people who are exploiting our natural resources. They are throwing waste from their operations into rivers that children are drinking water from. So in the future, what does our future look like from a health perspective? Where are we actually going? But the authorities who have the responsibility right now to mandate and enforce safety measures to protect our citizens are not doing their job. So I'm not going to sit here and watch the same people continue to operate in government and lead the people of Zimbabwe, because the people of Zimbabwe have the right to choose a different government. We are saying as UZA, as the president of UZA, I am saying I will be a president for the people. I will serve the people. I will listen to the people, genuinely listen to the people. I want to see a Zimbabwe where Zimbabweans are capacitated in their own areas for a change, We don't want people coming from Harare telling us what to do in Matebele land. We don't want people going to Mashingo from another province and saying what to do. We want a Zimbabwe where people in their own areas have the ability to predict and share what they want for the future of their country. We want a government of Zimbabwe that is accountable to the people of Zimbabwe. And so I say to the people of Zimbabwe, hold me accountable. Hold every one of our leaders within UZA accountable, because that's our philosophy. That's our mantra, citizens' engagement. From day one, that's what we've been about, and that's what we will continue to be about. As UZA, we also say that we have zero tolerance for discrimination. We do not want a government where the leaders are selecting people based on familial relations, you know, nepotism, all the rest of it has to go. We don't want a Zimbabwe where the government of Zimbabwe takes preference towards certain areas or certain people. We also are saying we have a zero tolerance for corruption. As a political party, we've already seen people have different characters and different traits. We're very selective about who we will put forward as leaders within our party. So as a new political party, sure, we might have come in very short timing in terms of just prior to the elections, but we also believe that Zimbabwe is very polarized. People don't have a choice, a viable choice. Yes, there are lots of political parties in Zimbabwe, but there hasn't been a political party, a third way, which is a viable way that can give people a different future, a different solution. UZA is that. We've grown so quickly. And, you know, from the response, when I hear, you know, what people say about you are going to divide the country, you're going to take away votes, well, I think the Zimbabwean people know what they want. And the reason why UZA is growing so quickly is because the Zimbabwean people want a very different future. They're choosing UZA. They know what they want. So it's a democracy. Let Zimbabweans choose the future government of our country. It's plain and simple. As people do their homework and they research who we are, they know the background, the path that I have had. I mean, I'm a woman who actually stood up to Idi Mnangagwa and said, what you are doing is wrong. We rallied our entire community to stop mining in Hwange National Park. I can't participate in a government which is giving away our country to foreigners. I cannot participate in a government which is not preserving and protecting our natural resources for the benefit of the people of Zimbabwe. I want to see a Zimbabwe where Zimbabweans are the beneficiaries. So watch and see what we are and who we are. There's nothing I can say that will convince people otherwise, but I know what we stand for. The people who get to know us, who become part of UZA, who learn about our ideology, who understand what UZA is, know very well and clear that we are no part of ZANU-PF. We also will never join POLAD. That's a question which comes up all the time. It's a new political party that wants to join POLAD. We will never join POLAD. We decided this as an executive directorate, as a leadership from day one. We are here with one simple and clear message, one simple and clear mission, that is to build Zimbabwe. And we are saying we're not going to wait until we are in government. We're going to start now. We are already doing it. I've proven myself in terms of my commitment, the investment I've made in Zimbabwe, in building jobs, building careers, training the next generation of our youth. We want a very different future for Zimbabwe, and therefore we are building a new government to replace the current government of Zimbabwe. Yeah, look, you know, we've got a very turbulent history when you look at the economics of our country. A lot of people have proposed different solutions. You've got brilliant people even today in government who say they have the answer to our country, our economics. I hear people saying, you know, the solution is to keep the US dollar and all these other things. As UZA, the one thing that we know for sure is that we need very different solutions. We need to take a very different approach as a government. We need to regain and restore confidence in this country before we can even talk about economic stability. If we are to have a stable economy in Zimbabwe, it starts with the very basics, and that's our policies, the way that we operate as a government. You can't operate in a country where, you know, literally at the drop of a hat, overnight, people come up with new policies, changes in policy. You know, it's such an unpredictable financial environment to work in. And so we as UZA, we will ensure that we bring together the best and the brightest from a from a financial standpoint, people who have the knowledge, the expertise, the background to restore and rebuild the economic environment of Zimbabwe. But it starts with coming to an agreement that we need stability in our country. Therefore, we need a stable government. We need a government that is predictable. So that way, when people look to invest in our country, they know that their investments are sound. There's no shortage of people interested and wanting to support and build Zimbabwe. There's no shortage of resources in our country to build up the economy. But we need to go back to basics and make sure that the environment we're operating in will provide for that, will provide for the growth of our economy. I also happen to believe that in Zimbabwe, our answer is not relying on a foreign currency. You can't build a future on someone else's dollar. I mean, how does that work? How do we then become a viable economic contender when we don't even have our own currency? And so that's one of the things that we as UZA will ensure, is making sure that as Zimbabwe, we regain confidence in our currency. And I'm not talking the RTGS or the bond note. I'm talking a Zimbabwe dollar, which everybody knows, when they invest in that dollar, has strength. Again, it goes back to being fiscally sound and having all of the policies in place to make sure that the environment provides for growth. Sure. Look, we're not placing priority on foreign direct investments as UZA. We believe we have enough wealth here in Zimbabwe. We want to see Zimbabwean business people rise up. And so we're so confident about this that we are actually investing in building companies in Zimbabwe. I have made a pledge to make sure that by the end of this year, we will build 30 companies. We're not looking for foreign investors. We are looking for Zimbabweans who have good ideas. We believe in Zimbabwe, the missed opportunity that we have is we're not investing in our own people. We're looking abroad and saying people will come and save us. People will come and rescue us. We have our own wealth. Why exploit Zimbabwe further? Why not make sure that the Zimbabwean people are capacitated to build wealth? We want a Zimbabwe where Zimbabweans take the lead. Zimbabweans set the policies. Zimbabweans direct the future. We don't want to be puppets of any other country. We don't want to be directed by other people. So it's the same thing from an investment standpoint. We welcome investment from anywhere in the world. We want an environment where people feel confident investing in our country. But our first priority is investing in our own people, investing in companies that we have already established, investing in ideas that Zimbabweans, whether they are young youth, whether they are women, whether they are people in rural areas or in urban areas, when they have an idea, let's bring those ideas to life. Let's give people the capacity to build their own incomes. Let's not rely on other people. We are rich as a country. Remember that. I think people in Zimbabwe, we've been beaten down and pressed so far down that we've forgotten our country is rich. The reason people look to Zimbabwe so much is because they want what we have for their own countries. So I'm saying change that mentality. Think about it in different ways. Do we not have the capacity to build from within? Do we not have the ability to leverage our own resources and create something significant from our own people? There are major companies all over the world that started in garages, literally started as ideas in garages and became multi-billion-dollar companies. Multi-billion-dollar companies. Companies that have capacity greater than our entire GDP in this country. Think about that. Think about that. Why can't we do it? I'm confident Zimbabwe can do this. We are being funded by Zimbabweans, by our own members. It's fully Zimbabwean funded. And that's the bottom line. We are capacitating ourselves through the members. We have citizens now throughout Zimbabwe. We're a growing political party. Our goal is to reach 6.5 million citizens, 6.5 million members by the time we get to 2023. We're seeing tremendous growth. We do have a membership program, but we also have people who support and believe in what we are doing as UZA. We don't need to look abroad. We don't need to look anywhere else. It's all about Zimbabweans for us. As we were watching the establishment of the new version of MDC, we were actually surprised because as we were seeing them unfold, we've been traveling throughout Zimbabwe. Our members know we've been everywhere. There's not a province we've not been. We've been to most constituencies. The only thing with us, we've been mostly in rural areas. And we haven't been a social media political party. We've been meeting face to face with people. So we've always had yellow t-shirts. Yellow is our color. It's one of the colors on our logo. We also use brown sometimes in our t-shirts. We use beige, we use green. So we've got a range of different colors, but majorly we've always used yellow. So if you look at footage even from last year, we've had events and people have been wearing yellow. It's actually surprising to me that people in Zimbabwe don't actually do their homework and look into what's really happening. Copy and paste is what's happened a lot. The same thing with our approach towards citizens' engagement. We have had at the very heart of our ideology citizens' engagement. That's literally what we've said from day one, and it always will be. We don't deviate from what we are saying. Our ideology, our founding values are all very, very clear. But we don't spend a lot of our time trying to attack or insult other political parties. We're actually surprised by the amount of fury people have had and, coming through and saying to us, you are taking our color. Look, it's just a color. I think at the end of the day, what matters is the vision and the mission of the political party. So let's look beyond the superficial things. Yellow is our color. It stays our color. It continues to be the color that UZA will have whenever it has events. But I don't think this is something that needs to divide people. If there are people who have a similar color, more power to them. Yeah, I'm not confident, and we are very concerned. Today, as early as today, we're hearing about suddenly the ballots have changed from color to black and white. I'm getting phone calls from our candidates saying, what is going on? Why would they do that? When they know that we have always had color, like we've got, as part of our logos, we've got colors. The photos that we submitted were color, and they were required to be color. So why now is the ballot in black and white? We know that our voters are going to be looking for a photo, a very specific photo, and they are used to seeing the photos in color. They're used to seeing our flyers in color. I think it's unfortunate that ZEC as an organization, as an entity, is losing sight of the fact that they are supposed to be accountable. They report and are accountable to all the political parties. They're not supposed to vie for one or the other. They're supposed to be representing transparently all of us. And so we do want to see a level of accountability. It's really unfortunate that even throughout Zimbabwe, any citizen you talk to, they have no confidence in the electoral process. It's a challenge to convince a citizen to go out and vote, because they actually say, what's the point? We are already at a disadvantage before we get to the ballot. So we certainly appeal to ZEC to do the right thing. There needs to be reforms. We need to relook at how the organization is structured. We need to look at the utilization of the funding. We need to look at exactly who they are accountable to, who they are prioritizing and why. It's not the way it's supposed to be operating. We have certainly a lot of work to do, and I think it's going to take engagement, and we are already working on some of those things. Look, we're a young party, but a confident political party. We always say UZA, Dada, because we really believe in the electorate. We believe in the people of Zimbabwe, and as we've been building towards this election, certainly we wish we had more time. We have so many voters that we've not been able to reach. We want them to know that we are a very different government. We're a very different political party. And by the way, we always say we are a government in waiting. We're already a government, preparing to lead Zimbabwe. We have 4 candidates. One is in Kwazana East. Our candidate is 24 years old. His name is David Kachidza, a very determined, visionary person who wants and has a heart for a better Kwazana East. I toured the place with him. He's someone who has very clear ideas for how to improve the environment. We saw waste all over the ground. I mean, there were so many challenges that they're facing from a health perspective. There are no jobs for the young people. He's a young person advocating for the future of Kwazana East. Harare East, we have Garikai Mlambo. He's a proven candidate. He was an independent in 2018. He stood independently wanting to see a better environment for people in Kwazana East. We've spent the last several weeks throughout in Harare East, yeah. We spent a lot of time actually touring his constituency, meeting people in Tafara, meeting people, throughout the spaces, and it's been really interesting to see how excited people are. So we have confidence that he will succeed, that people will choose Garikai Mlambo there. And then in Mbizo and in Kwekwe Central, we have 2 young candidates, first-timers in terms of standing, but they are individuals who are very committed to building up their constituencies. You know, Gladys Mutunami, who is in Mbizo, she always says, you know, I have lived the life that Zimbabweans have lived. I know what it's like to struggle. These are not pompous people. These are not people who are disconnected from the voters. They are people who live amongst the voters, spend their day in, day out, their time on the ground with voters. And we believe that the citizens in Mbizo will turn out to vote and support the woman candidate who's boldly stood up in Mbizo. And then Kwekwe Central, you know, we have Lennon Zingire. He's a champion. I always say he's a champion. This is a young man who, from day one, was always very clear in his ideas. He wants to see a very different environment. He's all about entrepreneurial programs. He wants to see the young people of Kwekwe having gainful employment. You know, they've got a lot of people who are, you know, working in mines right now who they say are being used. They're being, in a sense, used and not compensated for the work that they are doing. A lot of them, out of frustration, end up turning towards drugs. So he's got ideas for programs where we can restore and support young people and maybe give them something to occupy their time, give them something that's much more positive. So we're confident. We believe that 26 March, you will be seeing candidates on the ballot for each of our 4 constituencies who will be successfully chosen, who will be voted into office. We always say just give them that 8 months and see what they will do. Between now and 2023, you'll see a very different environment, and we're confident that this will be a wonderful way to pave the way for the government of UZA in 2023. In Tafara this weekend at Chemanza grounds, and as we got there, our citizens were being intimidated, they were being harassed. There were people at all of the entry points to the grounds. We had booked that grounds with the city council, we had a permit from the police, everything was in order, but we were told, they were actually told that they would be killed if they did this. So, you know, we see it everywhere we go. I mean, we don't, as UZA, spend a lot of time talking about the pains that we are facing, the challenges that we are facing. We want to focus on the positive things that we want to do, but it's very real, and we don't want an environment where people are being hurt or harmed for choosing, for making a choice. It's our right. In a democracy, we should be able to make a choice, and we should actually even be able to sit at the same table and say, look, your choice is this, but my choice is this. Let's put our ideas together and see how together we can build a better Zimbabwe. Remember, the government of Zimbabwe is not always constituted of one political party. There are multiple political parties in a government. And so we are going to have to learn to work together. No one should have to be victimized or attacked or beaten for choosing a different Zimbabwe, a different future for themselves. I think let the Zimbabwean citizens choose. It's up to ZEC, I think, and the authorities to make sure that we have the environment to allow us to freely and fairly campaign, to freely and fairly vote for our candidates. We don't want to see, we are very much against violence in UZA, and we don't want to see an environment where young people or any person is being attacked and is subject to violence. We do feel very badly for the people that have already been harmed by this election.